Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning. And today, we've definitely got a pretty interesting shell to test out, because I'm definitely curious to see what it can do. Based on one or two of the other previous tests we've done, we might see some good results, we might not, I really don't know. But if everything works out, we should see a really good result anyway. But for the shell I've got here today, it's another one that BG sent us, so big thank you to him. But he sent over some of these. Now I don't have the box for them, but these are some of the little bit older federal 3rd degree shells. This one is a 3.5 inch 2-ounce load of number 5, 6, and 7 shot. Now, from what I understand, the 5s and 6s are lead shot, and the 7 is some kind of a tungsten or a TSS shot. So definitely a pretty interesting little blend here. And we have tried one or two of the 3-inch federal 3rd degrees a little while back, and they did okay-ish, I think. So I'm definitely curious to see how the 3.5 inch versions do. And unfortunately, I don't have the box again to see what kind of velocity these are claiming. But if I find a claim, I'll put it up on the screen over here as to what they're supposed to be going. But I don't know, we'll be able to see that through our chronograph anyway. So definitely a pretty interesting shell today. And as for the setup we've got here today, I brought out the Mossberg 835 Ulti-Mag with the Kicks Gobblin Thunder 680 construction turkey choke. This Kicks has done us very well with a lot of loads, both lead and TSS. So with this being a combination of both, figured it might do okay anyway. Now I think these shells are supposed to have the flight control wad in them, from what I can remember. And I know somebody's probably going to comment that porting in these Kicks chokes might play with the flight control wad. And from our testing, it really hasn't made any kind of difference. So hopefully this 680 being a little bit more open might help these 3rd degree shells with the stacked load and the flight control wad. If it works out, then that'd be fantastic anyway. But as for the test, everything is going to be the same as usual. I have the turkey target set up at 40 yards. I also have the chronograph so we can get our speed and see what this shell was actually moving. So let's get you guys a view of the target. We'll take our shot, look at our chrono speed, and then go down to 40 yards and see how they actually performed. I don't know what to expect from these. They could be good, they could be kind of mediocre, they could be terrible. I don't know, but let's head over here and shoot it and see what kind of results we can actually get. Okay, so that shell gave us 1275 through the chrono. That probably means they were claiming 1250 is what I would guess, but I will again put the claim number on the screen here if I can find it. But 1275, you're starting to get up there a little bit in velocity, but I wouldn't necessarily call it anything too unusual for shells like these anyway to run that kind of speed. And of course, 1275, you're going to be carrying plenty of energy and stuff like that down there at 40 yards. So the velocity is within reason anyway for what I would have guessed for these shells, but how did they actually perform down there at 40 yards? Let's go check it out and see. Alright, now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. Very clearly, this turkey would have been absolutely hammered. I mean, there's nowhere in there for him to go. Nice, hot, dense core area, that's for sure. We've got a good mix of the 5s, 6s, and 7s throughout that turkey paper, and I think he was actually hit vitally anyway with all 3 shot sizes. So definitely a very good looking core area, I'd say. Now looking at the overall pattern here, it's definitely a little bit more towards the open and broad side, which surprises me a little bit considering how much shot is actually in that core area. For a 2-ounce load, that looks like a pretty good amount of shot to me. So I will say that if you're hunting with this shell, you might want to be a little bit careful about birds being close to him, because there's a surprising amount of shot around the edge. And it's definitely not what I would call flyers. It's just a much more broad pattern around the edges, which might not be a bad thing depending on how much leeway you want. But either way, for a federal shell, and based on what we had previously seen out of these 3rd degree shells, I can't complain too much about that pattern. That would absolutely crush a bird out to 40 yards. So is this a case of the older version of a shell doing a little bit better than the newer version of a shell again? I don't know. It's definitely a possibility, and it seems to be pretty common with Federal and Remington stuff, that the shells they put out 10, 15, 20 years ago seem to do a little bit better, a little bit more consistently, or more often than some of their newer stuff they've got. So I don't know. Definitely pretty interesting looking, but not much to complain about with this pattern. I would absolutely hunt with it. You've got kind of The best of both worlds. You've got a pretty hot looking core area with plenty of leeway and a pretty even overall pattern as well. So I'm definitely liking what I'm seeing out of these 3.5 inch, little bit older 3rd degree shells. So definitely I'd say thumbs up for me for this pattern. And we might even still have a little bit more wiggle room to tighten it up a little bit more even. So definitely looking pretty good overall here. Okay, and here's that big 3.5 inch federal flight control wad. I think it's funny looking at these big 3.5 inch wads. They just look kind of misproportioned to me when it comes to this flight control stuff. Either way, looks really good for going through a Kicks choke. Usually those Kicks chokes kind of beat things up a little bit. We do see a little bit of a bulge right in between our fins here in the middle, but nothing super unusual. Our tail fins opened up pretty good here. Nothing stuck down in there or anything, no snags. Everything looks good, and I think it did what it was supposed to do for today. So looking pretty good overall as for a wad. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that pattern right there? Definitely a turkey hammer out at 40 yards all day long. You could probably push that to 45 and 50 yards as well if you needed a field setup. And you kind of got a little bit of both worlds here. You got a nice hot and even core area with plenty of leeway, while the pattern is not what I would call blown out either. It's definitely a little bit more broad around the edges, but still plenty usable of a turkey pattern, that's for sure. So overall, definitely a very good looking pattern from a federal shell, in my opinion anyway. That might be one of the better patterns we've ever gotten out of a federal shell. So that's definitely pretty good looking and pretty surprising. But let me know your thoughts about it in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little bit surprised one way or the other? And if you have tested or used any of these 3.5 inch 3rd degrees or the older 3rd degree shells, what has been your results with them? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more filming to do for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.